Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty, looking out at the stars through the big window. He had been in space for 20 years, but this mission was different. This was humanity's first trip to the far edge of known space. They were looking for new worlds, new life, maybe even new friends among the stars. "Captain, we're getting close to the target system," said Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez from her seat at the communications desk. She was young, maybe 25, with bright eyes full of hope. Like most of the crew, she believed this mission would change everything for humanity. Jake nodded and walked over to look at the star charts. "Any signs of life in the system?" "Not yet, sir, but our sensors are picking up something strange. There's a large object moving near the fourth planet. It's big, Captain. Really big." Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. In all his years exploring space, he had learned to trust that feeling. When something felt wrong, it usually was wrong. "How big are we talking about?" he asked. Amy looked at her screens again. Her face went pale. "Sir, it's over 2 miles long. That's bigger than anything we've ever built." The bridge went quiet. Everyone knew what this meant. Humans had been alone in space for so long that finding another intelligent species was always possible. But now, it was real. Jake looked around, at his crew. There were 43 people on the Liberty, all depending on him to make the right choices. "Send a message," Jake said. "Use the standard first contact protocols. Tell them we come in peace." Amy's fingers moved quickly over her controls. "Message sent, Captain. Now we wait." They didn't have to wait long. The answer came back in less than a minute, but it wasn't what they expected. Instead of words, their ship was hit by something that made all the lights flicker and the whole ship shake. "What was that?" Jake shouted. "Some kind of scanning beam, Captain," said Lieutenant Commander Tony Garcia from the weapons station. "They just looked at every part of our ship, our weapons, our engines, everything." Then the real message came. It appeared on their main screen in perfect English, which scared Jake more than anything else. How did they know human language? The message was simple and cold. "Weak species detected. Surrender now or be destroyed. You have 60 seconds to comply." Jake stared at the words. 60 seconds. After all of humanity's dreams about meeting other life in the universe, this was how it happened. Not with friendship or trade or learning from each other. With a demand to surrender. "Captain, we're getting visual contact," Amy said, her voice shaking. The screen changed to show the alien ship. Jake had seen many things in space, but nothing like this. The ship looked like it was made for war. Black metal covered in spikes. And weapons. It looked hungry, like a beast ready to eat them, but it was the aliens themselves that made Jake's blood run cold. They appeared on screen, and they were huge. At least 12 feet tall, covered in what looked like natural armor. Their faces were like insects, but worse. They had too many eyes, and when they opened their mouths, Jake could see rows of sharp teeth. The one in the center spoke. Its voice was deep and full of hate. "I am War Prime Kethvar of the Zephyrian Empire. Your species will serve us, or your species will die. Choose now." Jake looked around his bridge. His crew was scared, but they were looking at him, waiting for his decision. These were good people. Amy Rodriguez had a family back on Earth. Tony Garcia had just gotten married. They all had lives, dreams, people who loved them. 40 seconds, the alien said. Jake thought about Earth, about his own wife and children waiting for him to come home, about the billions of humans who didn't even know this was happening. What would these creatures do to his world if they got there? 30 seconds. Jake made his choice. Amy, send a message back. What should I say, Captain? Tell them to go to hell. Amy's eyes got wide. Sir? You heard me. Tell them that humanity doesn't surrender to bullies. Amy sent the message. The alien's face changed. It looked surprised, then angry. 20 seconds, it said. But now its voice was different. It sounded confused. Tony, charge all weapons, Jake ordered. Amy, get ready to send a message to Earth. Tell them what we found out here. Captain, we can't fight that thing, Tony said. It's got more guns than our entire fleet. I know, Jake said, but we're going to try anyway. The alien spoke again. 10 seconds. This is your final warning. Jake stood up straight. Fire everything we have. The Liberty's weapons shot out at the huge alien ship. The energy beams hit the alien's shields and made bright flashes of light. For a moment, Jake thought they might have a chance. Then the alien ship fired back. The first shot hit their port side and tore a huge hole in the ship. Alarms started ringing everywhere. The second shot took out their main engines. The Liberty was dying, and Jake knew it. Amy, did you get the message to Earth? Yes, sir. Send everything we recorded. Good girl. Jake looked at his crew one more time. They were scared, but they weren't giving up. That made him proud. The alien appeared on screen again. This time it looked interested instead of angry. Your species fights even when you cannot win. This is unusual. Most species beg for their lives by now. We're not most species, Jake said. Indeed, you will make interesting slaves. We will study your homeworld before we take it. The alien ship fired one more time. The shot hit the Liberty's bridge, and Jake Morrison's world went white. But before he died, Jake Morrison smiled. Because he knew something the aliens didn't know. They thought humanity was like every other species they had conquered. They thought humans would be scared and weak. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The message Amy sent reached Earth 3 days later. It contained everything they had seen and heard, the location of the alien ship, recordings of their technology, and most important of all, Jake Morrison's final words to his wife. Tell everyone that we didn't back down. Tell them to get ready. They're coming, but we're not going to make it. Easy for them. War Prime Kethvar looked at the wreckage of the human ship floating in space. In all his years of conquest, he had never seen a species fight so hard when they had no chance of winning. It was interesting, but not important. He sent 50 ships toward the human homeworld. It would be enough to conquer them, just like all the others. After all, no species had ever stood against the Zephyrian Empire and survived. War Prime Kethvar had conquered 73 worlds. He was about to learn that the 74th would be different. Admiral Lisa Parker stood in the command center on Luna Station, looking at the reports from Jake Morrison's ship. She had read them 10 times, but the facts didn't change. Humanity was not alone in the universe, and their new neighbors wanted to kill them all. How long do we have? She asked General Robert Cruz, who had come up from Earth as soon as the message arrived. 3 weeks, maybe 4, Robert said. Our best guess is they're moving at about half-light speed, 50 ships, each one bigger than anything we've ever built. Lisa looked out the window at Earth below. The blue and green planet looked so peaceful from here. Most people down there were still going about their normal lives. They didn't know that in a few weeks, everything might change forever. What do we have to fight them with? She asked. Robert's face was grim. 12 ships that can fight in deep space. The rest of our fleet is made for moving between planets, not for war. We have some weapons platforms around Earth and Luna, but nothing like what those aliens have. Lisa nodded. She had expected this. Humanity had been at peace for over 100 years. Their ships were built for exploration and trade, not for fighting monsters from the stars. There's something else, Robert said. We've been studying the recordings from Morrison's ship. These aliens, the Zephyrians, they're not just strong, they're smart. Their technology is hundreds of years ahead of ours. But they made one mistake, said a new voice. Lisa turned around to see Dr. Sarah Blake walking into the command center. Sarah was the best scientist humanity had, specializing in alien life forms. She had been studying the recordings nonstop since they arrived. What mistake? Lisa asked. Sarah put a data pad on the table. They underestimated Jake Morrison and his crew. Look at this. She pressed a button, and the screen showed the alien ship scanning the Liberty. They scanned our ship completely. They know everything about our technology, our weapons, even our basic biology. But they don't know the most important thing about humans, which is that we don't give up. Sarah's eyes were bright with excitement. Every other species they've conquered probably surrendered when they saw how powerful the aliens were. But Jake Morrison fought back, even when he knew he would die. That confused them. Lisa looked at the recordings again. The alien leader had seemed genuinely surprised when Jake refused to surrender. So they don't know how to fight someone who won't quit? Exactly. And there's more. Sarah pulled up another screen. I've been analyzing their ship design and their behavior. Everything about them suggests they're used to quick victories. They show up, people surrender, and it's over. They've never had to fight a long war. Robert leaned forward. Are you saying we might actually have a chance? I'm saying we have something they don't expect. We have people who will fight even when they can't win. 3 weeks later, the Zephyrian fleet arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system. Lisa Parker stood on the bridge of the UES Defender, humanity's largest warship. Around her, the small human fleet waited for orders. Admiral, we're getting a message from the alien fleet, said Lieutenant Commander Steve Adams at the communications. Station, put it on screen. War Prime Kethvar appeared on the main display. He looked even more frightening than in the recordings from Morrison's ship. Humans of Earth, I am War Prime Kethvar. Your scout ship has already shown us your weakness. Surrender now, and some of you will be allowed to live as our slaves. Lisa stepped forward. This is Admiral Lisa Parker of the Earth Defense Fleet. We've got a message for you, too. The alien's multiple eyes focused on her. Speak. Lisa smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Go home while you still can. Kethvar made a sound that might have been laughter. Your entire fleet is smaller than one of my dreadnoughts. You have no hope of victory. Maybe not, Lisa said. But we're going to try anyway. The alien's expression changed, just like it had with Jake Morrison. These humans kept doing the unexpected. You would rather die than serve? Every time. Kethvar closed the communication channel. A few minutes later, his fleet began moving toward Earth. The first battle took place near Mars. Colonel Mike Stevens was commanding the defense of the Mars colonies when 20 alien ships appeared. His forces consisted of 6 patrol boats and the orbital defense platforms around the Red Planet. The battle lasted exactly 14 minutes. The alien weapons tore through human shields like they weren't there. Their ships moved faster than anything humans had ever seen. When the alien boarding parties attacked the space stations, they cut through human defenses like paper. Mike Stevens died leading a last charge against alien invaders in the main corridor. of Mars Station 1. His final radio message to Earth was simple. They're strong, but they bleed. Hit them hard and they go down just like anything else. The message gave Lisa hope. The aliens could be hurt. They could be killed. That was something to work with. The second battle was at Luna Station. This time, Lisa was ready. She had studied the recordings from Mars and noticed something important. The aliens always attacked the same way. They came straight at their targets, using their superior firepower to win quickly. But humans had been fighting each other for thousands of years. They knew how to be sneaky. When the alien fleet approached Luna, they found what looked like a small defense force protecting the moon. Lisa had only 5 ships visible, and they looked scared and outgunned. The aliens took the bait. They rushed forward, eager for another quick victory. That's when Lisa sprang her trap. The defense force was actually bait ships, unmanned and controlled by computer. The real human fleet was hiding behind Luna, powered down and invisible to alien sensors. When the aliens got close to the fake ships, Lisa's fleet came around the moon and hit them from behind. The surprise attack worked perfectly. 3 alien ships exploded before they even knew they were under attack. But the victory didn't last long. The remaining aliens quickly figured out what was happening and turned to fight. The battle that followed was brutal. Human ships had to work together to damage even one alien vessel, while single alien shots could destroy human ships completely. But the humans had something the aliens didn't expect. They fought dirty. Captain Elena Martinez piloted her ship Wraith straight at an alien dreadnought, pretending to retreat. When the alien ship followed her, she led it straight into a minefield that the humans had laid earlier. The explosion took out both ships, but Elena's sacrifice saved dozens of other human vessels. When the battle was over, the humans had lost 8 ships, and the aliens had lost 6. By the numbers, it was almost even. But Lisa Parker knew the truth. Humanity was losing. We can't keep fighting them like this, she told Robert Cruz after the battle. We're running out of ships, and they've got plenty more where those came from. Robert nodded grimly. The scientists are working on new weapons based on the wreckage we recovered, but they need time. Time we don't have. Lisa looked at the tactical display showing alien ships moving through the solar system. They'll be at Earth in 2 days. Admiral, Dr. Sarah Blake's voice came over the intercom. Could you come to Lab 7? I think I found something. Lisa hurried to the science section of the station. She found Sarah standing over pieces of alien technology that had been recovered from the battle. What did you find? Sarah held up a strange device that looked like a crystal connected to metal wiring. This is how they communicate. All their ships are connected through something like a computer network. They share information instantly across their entire fleet. That explains how they coordinate so well, Lisa said. Yes, but it's also their weakness. Sarah's eyes were excited. If we could get into their network, we could disrupt their communications, maybe even turn their own ships against each other. Lisa felt hope rising in her chest. Can you do it? I need someone to get me close to one of their command ships, close enough to plug this into their system. Sarah held up a small device. I've modified one of their communication crystals with our own computer virus, but someone has to deliver it by hand. Lisa looked at the device. It was small enough to hide, but getting close to an alien command ship would be almost impossible. It would be a suicide mission. I'll do it, she said. Admiral, you can't, Robert protested. The fleet needs you. The fleet needs this to work more than it needs me. Lisa took the device from Sarah. How close do I need to get? You have to physically connect it to their main computer. The virus will do the rest, but you have to get inside their ship. Lisa nodded. She had known this day might come from the moment she put on the uniform. Get me a fast ship and a volunteer crew. We're going to end this war. As she walked toward the hangar bay, Lisa thought about Jake Morrison and his crew. They had died fighting impossible odds, but they had given humanity something precious, information about the enemy and proof that the aliens could be surprised. Now it was her turn to surprise them. The alien fleet was 2 days away from Earth, confident in their coming victory. War Prime Kethvar had lost some ships, but not enough to matter. These humans were more troublesome than expected, but they would fall just like all the others. He had no idea that one small human ship was already on its way to destroy everything he had built. Captain Elena Martinez sat in the pilot's seat of the stealth ship Wraith, watching the alien fleet grow larger on her screen. Behind her, Dr. Sarah Blake was checking the virus device one more time. They had been flying toward the enemy ships for 18 hours, and they would reach the alien command vessel in 20 minutes. "Are you sure this will work?" Elena asked quietly. Sarah looked up from her equipment. "The virus should spread through their entire network in about 30 seconds. Once I plug it in. But Elena, we have to get to their main computer core. That means going deep into their ship." Elena nodded. She had known this was a one-way trip when she volunteered. Her job was to get Sarah to the alien computer and make sure she had enough. Time to plant the virus. After that, it didn't matter what happened to them. "Contact from Admiral Parker," said Lieutenant Danny Clark from the communications station. Elena pressed a button. Lisa Parker's voice filled the small ship. "Wraith, this is Admiral Parker. The alien fleet will reach Earth in 6 hours. Whatever you're going to do, it has to be now." "Understood, Admiral. We're beginning our approach." "Elena." Lisa's voice was soft. "You know the whole human race is counting on you, right?" Elena smiled even though no one could see her. "No pressure at all. Good luck, Wraith. Make it count." The communication ended. Elena looked at her crew. There were only 5 of them on the ship. Danny Clark at communications, Lieutenant Maria Lopez at weapons, Sergeant Pete Johnson watching the engines, and Dr. Blake with her virus. All volunteers, all ready to die if it meant saving Earth. "Okay, people," Elena said. "Let's go crash a party." The Wraith was built for stealth missions. It was small, fast, and almost invisible to most sensors. Elena flew it carefully between the alien ships, staying in their blind spots and using their own massive vessels to hide from their scanners. The alien command ship was enormous. It was over 3 miles long and covered with weapons and armor. Elena could see smaller ships flying around it like insects around a giant beast. Getting inside would be almost impossible. Almost. "Sarah, how do we get into that thing?" Elena asked. Sarah had been studying the alien ship design for weeks. "There," she pointed to a section near the back of the ship. "Those are waste disposal ports. They're not heavily guarded because the aliens never expected anyone to try getting in. Through their garbage chutes." Elena made a face. "We're going in through their toilet?" Something like that. But Elena, once we're inside, we'll have maybe 10 minutes before they figure out we're there. The computer core is in the center of the ship. That's a long way to go. Then we better move fast. Elena brought the Wraith close to the waste disposal port. The opening was just big enough for their ship to fit through, but it would be tight. One mistake, and they would crash into the alien hull and explode. "Maria, are you ready with the weapons?" Elena asked. "Ready, Captain, but against a ship this big, we might as well be throwing rocks." Sometimes rocks are enough to break windows. Elena guided the ship through the port opening. The fit was so tight that the hull scraped against the alien metal. Alarms started going off inside the Wraith, but they made it through. They were inside the enemy ship. The interior of the alien vessel was dark and scary. The walls were covered with the same black metal as the outside, and everything looked designed to hurt people. Elena could see alien symbols glowing on the walls, probably directions or warnings. "The computer core should be this way," Sarah said, pointing down a corridor that looked like it went on forever. They left the ship and started running. Elena carried a human rifle, even though she knew it probably wouldn't do much good against alien armor. Sarah had the virus device in a bag on her back. The other crew members spread out to watch for enemies. They had been running for 3 minutes when they met their first alien. The creature was even bigger up close than it had looked on the screen. 12 feet tall, covered in natural armor, with claws that could cut through steel. It saw them coming and made a sound like a roar mixed with a scream. Maria Lopez shot it with her energy rifle. The blast hit the alien in the chest and knocked it backward, but it got up again. "Angry! The armor's too thick!" Maria shouted. The alien charged at them. Elena dove to one side and Maria dove to the other. The creature ran past them and smashed into the wall behind them. The impact was so hard it dented the metal. "Go for the joints!" Elena yelled. "Between the armor plates!" Maria's next shot hit the alien where its arm connected to its body. This time, the creature went down and stayed down. "Move! Move!" Elena shouted. More alarms were going off now. The aliens knew they were inside. They ran through corridors filled with alien technology. Everything was huge, built for creatures, much larger than humans. The ceilings were 20 feet high, and the doorways were wide enough for 3 aliens to walk through side by side. "How much further?" Elena asked as they ran. 2 more levels down," Sarah panted. She wasn't used to running and fighting like the soldiers were. They reached a lift that would take them deeper into the ship, but when the doors opened, 3 aliens were waiting for them. The fight was quick and brutal. Pete Johnson went down, first, killed by alien claws before he could even raise his weapon. Danny Clark managed to wound one of the creatures before a second alien grabbed him and threw him against the wall so hard his neck broke. Elena and Maria worked together to kill the 3rd alien, but Maria took a deep cut across her shoulder that was bleeding badly. "Can you keep going?" Elena asked. Maria gripped her rifle tighter. "I can keep going until this is done." They took the lift down 2 levels. The computer core was close now. Elena could feel it, but she could also hear more aliens coming after them. A lot more. "There!" Sarah pointed to a massive door covered with alien symbols. "That's it." The door was locked, but Maria's energy rifle blasted the lock apart. They rushed inside and found themselves in a room that looked like the inside of a giant computer. Lights flashed everywhere, and strange sounds filled the air. In the center of the room was a pillar of crystal and metal that reached from the floor to the ceiling. It pulsed with energy and seemed alive. "That's their main computer," Sarah said. "If I can connect the virus to that, it should spread to every ship in their fleet." Elena heard footsteps in the corridor outside. Heavy footsteps. The aliens had found them. "How long do you need?" she asked. 2 minutes to make the connection, then 30 seconds for the virus to upload." "You've got it." Elena and Maria took positions on either side of the door. A few seconds later, the first aliens came through. The battle was desperate. Elena and Maria had good positions and the doorway was narrow, so the aliens could only come at them a few at a time. But there were so many of them, and human weapons could only do so much damage. Maria went down after 30 seconds, overwhelmed by 3 aliens attacking at once. Elena kept fighting, but she was running out of ammunition and the aliens kept. "Coming! How much longer?" she shouted to Sarah. 30 more seconds! Elena didn't have 30 seconds. An alien claw raked across her chest, tearing through her armor and drawing blood. Another alien grabbed her rifle and crushed it with its bare hands. Elena pulled her sidearm and kept shooting. 10 seconds. The aliens were almost on top of her. 5 seconds. An alien claw came down toward her head. "Got it!" Sarah shouted. The change was immediate. The lights in the computer core started flashing different colors. The alien attacking Elena suddenly stopped and looked confused. Throughout the ship, alarms began sounding different tones. "It's working," Sarah said. "The virus is spreading through their network." Elena looked around. The aliens in the room had stopped attacking and were standing still, like they were listening to something far away. Their coordinated assault had turned into confused chaos. "What's happening to them?" "The virus is disrupting their communications network. They can't coordinate with each other anymore. Each ship in their fleet is now cut off from the others." Through the ship's hull, Elena could hear explosions in the distance. The alien fleet was in chaos, with ships firing on each other because they couldn't tell friend from enemy anymore. But their mission wasn't over yet. Elena grabbed Sarah's arm. "We need to get out of here before they figure out how to fix this." They ran back toward their ship, but the corridors were full of confused aliens wandering around without direction. Some were attacking each other. Others were just standing still, waiting for orders that would never come. Elena and Sarah made it back to the Wraith, just as the alien command ship started shaking apart. The virus had done more than disrupt communications. It had also affected the ship's main systems. "Can you fly us out of here?" Sarah asked. Elena looked at the controls. Half of them were damaged from the battle, but the engines were still working. "Hold on tight." The Wraith blasted out of the waste disposal port just as explosions began, tearing through the alien command ship. Elena flew the small stealth vessel away from the dying dreadnought and toward the edge of the alien fleet. Behind them, the most powerful fleet in the galaxy was destroying itself. Ships that had conquered dozens of worlds were now firing on their own allies, confused and leaderless. "Admiral Parker, this is Wraith," Elena said into her radio. "Mission accomplished. The alien fleet is neutralized." Lisa Parker's voice came back immediately. "Elena, you're alive?" Elena looked at Sarah, who was grinning despite her exhaustion. "We're both alive, Admiral, and we just won the war." On Earth, people looked up at the sky and saw flashes of light that lasted for hours. They didn't know it yet, but they were watching the end of the most dangerous threat humanity had ever faced. War Prime Kethvar stood on the bridge of his personal ship, one of the few vessels that hadn't been affected by the virus because it wasn't connected to the main network. He watched his fleet tear itself apart and felt something he had never experienced before: fear. These humans had done the impossible. They had turned the strength of the Zephyrian Empire against itself. In one clever attack, they had destroyed a fleet that had conquered most of the galaxy. Kethvar sent a message to the Zephyrian homeworld. For the first time in his species' history, he was asking for help. The humans were not like any enemy they had ever faced. They were going to need a much bigger fleet. 6 months after the Battle of Earth, Admiral Chris Johnson stood in the command center of the rebuilt Earth Defense Fleet, looking at reports that would have seemed impossible a year ago. Humanity was winning. The virus that Dr. Sarah Blake had created didn't just disrupt the alien fleet for a few hours. It had completely destroyed their ability to work together as a unified force. Without their communication network, the Zephyrian Empire was falling apart across the entire galaxy. "Admiral, we're getting reports from the Centauri system," said Captain Danny Clark, who had survived his injuries and was now Johnson's chief of staff. "3 more Zephyrian worlds have declared independence from the Empire. Their human allies are helping them set up new governments." Chris nodded. It was strange to think about. 6 months ago, humanity had been alone in the universe and facing extinction. Now they were leading a rebellion that was freeing dozens of worlds from alien tyranny. "What about the Grand Fleet?" Chris asked. Danny's expression became more serious. "Still coming, sir. Our long-range sensors show over 3,000 ships heading this way. They'll be here in 2 weeks. Chris looked out the window at the massive shipyards orbiting Earth. Day and night, human workers and their new alien allies were building ships faster than anyone had thought possible, but 3,000 enemy ships was still an enormous number. How many ships will we have when they arrive? 800 of our own, plus about 200 from the freed worlds, still outnumbered 3-1. Chris had been expecting this. War Prime Kethvar had escaped the destruction of his first fleet and returned to the Zephyrian homeworld. There he had convinced the ruling council that humanity was a threat to their entire civilization. The Grand Fleet was their response. Every warship the Zephyrian Empire could gather. "Sir," Danny continued, "there's something else. The aliens have changed their tactics. Intelligence reports say they've modified their ships to work without the central communication network. They won't fall for the same trick twice." Chris wasn't surprised. The Zephyrians were learning, just like humans had learned from their first defeats. This final battle would be different from anything that had come before. "Get me Dr. Blake," Chris said. A few minutes later, Sarah Blake entered the command center. She looked tired but determined. For the past 6 months, she had been working non-stop to develop new weapons and defenses based on captured alien technology. "Admiral," she said, "I have good news and bad news." "Give me the bad news first. The aliens have completely redesigned their fleet. New armor, new weapons, new everything. Most of our advantages from the first battle won't work anymore." Chris sighed. He had hoped they would have more time to prepare. "And the good news?" Sarah smiled. "We've been busy too. Remember how we could barely damage their ship 6 months ago? That's not a problem anymore." She activated a holographic display showing the new human weapons. Quantum torpedoes that can punch through any armor, energy shields that can stop, their plasma cannons, and most importantly, we figured out how to make our ships as fast as theirs. Chris studied the display. The new human ships looked different from the old ones. Sleeker, more dangerous. They looked like they were built for war. Will it be enough? Against their old fleet, definitely. Against 3,000 of their newest ships? Sarah shrugged. "We'll find out." 2 weeks later, the Zephyrian Grand Fleet arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system. Chris Johnson stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable, humanity's new flagship, and watched the largest space fleet ever assembled take up attack positions. The alien ships were different now. Instead of the organic predator-like designs of the first fleet, these vessels looked like geometric nightmares, all angles and weapons built by a species that had finally realized they were in a real war. "Admiral, incoming message from the alien fleet," reported Lieutenant Commander Steve Adams. "Put it on screen." War Prime Kethvar appeared on the main display. He looked different too. The arrogant confidence was gone, replaced by cold determination. Behind him, Chris could see other aliens, the ruling council of the Zephyrian Empire. "Humans of Earth," Kethvar said. I am War Prime Kethvar. 6 months ago, you humiliated me and destroyed my fleet with trickery and deception. Today, I return. With the might of the entire Zephyrian Empire, surrender now and your deaths will be quick. Chris stepped forward. This is Admiral Chris Johnson of the Earth Defense Fleet. I've got a message for you and your council. Speak. Chris looked directly into the alien's multiple eyes. You started this war when you killed Jake Morrison and his crew. You could have had peace, but you chose violence. Now you're going to learn what happens when you threaten humanity's home. Kethvar's expression didn't change. Bold words from a species that barely survived our first attack. You have 1,000 ships. We have 3,000. Your tricks will not work twice. You're right, Chris said. We're not going to use tricks this time. We're going to beat you in a straight fight. For the first time, Kethvar looked surprised. Then he made that sound that might have been laughter. Impossible. No species in the galaxy can match the Zephyrian Empire in open battle. No species except humanity. The communication ended. A few minutes later, both fleets began moving toward each other. The Battle of Earth was the largest space engagement in galactic history. Over 4,000 ships fought across millions of cubic miles of space, from the orbit of Mars all the way to Earth's moon. The battle began at maximum range, with both sides firing their longest-range weapons. The new human quantum torpedoes proved their worth immediately. Unlike the old weapons that barely scratched alien armor, the quantum torpedoes punched through Zephyrian shields and hulls like they were made of paper. But the aliens had new weapons too. Their plasma cannons were more powerful than before, and they had developed missiles that could track human ships across vast distances. Lieutenant Commander Steve Adams commanded a squadron of the new human fighters, each one equipped with quantum weaponry and energy shields. His job was to protect the larger ships from alien bombers. Blue Squadron, we've got incoming bombers at 2 o'clock, he radioed to his pilots. 20 alien fighters heading for the Indomitable. Copy that, Blue Leader. Moving to intercept. The dogfight that followed was brutal and beautiful. Human and alien fighters danced through space, trading energy blasts and missile fire. The new human ships were faster and more agile than the old ones, but the aliens had learned to fight dirty, too. Steve's fighter was hit by an alien plasma bolt that knocked out his shields. He spiraled toward a nearby asteroid, pursued by 2 alien fighters. At the last second, he pulled up and flew along the asteroid's surface. The alien pilots followed him, but they weren't ready for what came next. Steve led them around the asteroid, and straight into the guns of the human cruiser Valiant. Captain Danny Clark had been waiting for exactly this opportunity. The Valiant's weapons destroyed both alien fighters in a single volley. Thanks for the assist, Valiant, Steve radioed. Anytime, Blue Leader. Keep those bombers off us. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out hundreds of times. The new human technology was holding its own against the aliens, but the numbers were still against them. For every alien ship destroyed, humanity lost 2 of their own. The real turning point came when Sergeant Maria Lopez led a boarding party onto an alien dreadnought. Maria had survived her injuries from the stealth mission and spent months training for exactly this kind of operation. Her team of 20 Marines used the new transport ships to break through the alien hull and fight their way inside. What they found surprised everyone. "Admiral, this is Lopez," Maria radioed from inside the enemy ship. "You need to hear this. These aliens aren't as tough as we thought." "Explain," Chris replied. "Sir, in close combat, we're actually better than they are. They're big and strong, but they're slow and predictable. My Marines are cutting through them like butter." Chris couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Are you sure?" "Positive, sir. I think all those years of being the apex predators made them soft. They're not used to fighting anyone who fights back effectively." The news spread quickly through the human fleet. Boarding parties were launched at alien ships across the battlefield. In ship-to-ship combat, the aliens still had advantages. But when it came to hand-to-hand fighting inside the ships, humans were proving superior. The psychological effect was devastating for the Zephyrians. For the first time in their species' history, they were losing ground battles to what they considered an inferior species. War Prime Kethvar watched from his command ship as his forces began to falter. The humans were not just matching his fleet, they were winning. Ship after ship reported that human boarding parties had taken control of their vessels. "This is impossible," he said to his second-in-command. "We are the dominant species in the galaxy. We have conquered 73 worlds." "War Prime," his aide replied carefully, "perhaps we underestimated these humans again." Kethvar turned all of his eyes on the smaller alien. "What do you mean?" "Sir, we assumed that because they were smaller and physically weaker, they would be inferior warriors. But they fight with a creativity and determination we have never encountered. Each human seems to think independently, making them unpredictable in combat." For the first time in his life, War Prime Kethvar began to understand what he was facing. The Zephyrian Empire had grown strong by being uniform, disciplined, and overwhelming. But humanity's strength came from being diverse, creative, and stubborn. "Order all ships to retreat," he said quietly. "Sir, you heard me. Signal the retreat. We cannot win this battle." As the surviving ships of the Zephyrian Grand Fleet began to withdraw, Chris Johnson stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and watched humanity's greatest victory unfold before him. They had done the impossible. Outnumbered 3-1, fighting, the most powerful military force in the galaxy, humanity had won. But Chris knew this was more than just a military victory. They had proven that the Zephyrian Empire was not invincible. Across the galaxy, enslaved species would hear about this battle and know that freedom was possible. "Admiral," Steve Adams said from the communications station, "we're getting messages from all over the galaxy. Dozens of worlds are declaring independence from the Zephyrian Empire." Chris smiled. "Send a message to all human ships and our allies. Tell them that today, we didn't just save Earth. We freed the galaxy." 1 year after the Battle of Earth, Ambassador Kate Foster walked through the halls of the Galactic Council Station, heading to the most important meeting in human history. Behind her walked Admiral Chris Johnson and Dr. Sarah Blake, representing humanity's military and scientific achievements. The station was huge, built to accommodate dozens of different alien species. Kate had been here for 3 months now, negotiating humanity's entry into the galactic community. Today, the Council would vote on whether humans would be accepted as equals or treated as a junior species under someone else's protection. "Are you nervous?" Sarah asked as they approached the main council chamber. Kate smiled. "A year ago, I was a diplomat who had never met an alien. Today, I'm about to speak for all of humanity to the leaders of 100 worlds. Of course I'm nervous," Chris laughed. "You'll do fine. After everything we've been through, talking to politicians should be easy." The council chamber was enormous, with seats arranged in a circle for representatives from all the member species. Kate had met most of them over the past few months. Some were friendly, grateful that humanity had freed them from Zephyrian rule. Others were cautious, worried about what humans might do with their new power. At the center of the chamber sat Chancellor Vex Tai of the Altarian Republic, the Council's current leader. She was a tall, blue-skinned alien with 4 arms and eyes that seemed to see everything. Kate had found her to be fair but tough in their previous meetings. "Representatives of humanity," Chancellor Vextai said as they took their seats. "The Galactic Council has reviewed your application for full membership. Before we vote, there are questions that must be answered." Kate stood up. "We're ready to answer any questions you have." An alien from the far side of the chamber spoke up. Kate recognized him as Senator Kroll Goth, representative of the hegemony. "Worlds. Humans. In 1 year you have gone from an unknown species to the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Many of us are concerned about your intentions." "Our intentions are the same as they've always been," Kate replied. "We want to live in peace with our neighbors and explore the galaxy together." "Yet you destroyed the Zephyrian Empire." Another voice said. "You could have simply defeated their fleets and stopped there. Instead, you encouraged rebellions across their territory. Why?" Sarah Blake stood up. "Because slavery is wrong. The Zephyrians had enslaved dozens of species for centuries. When we had the power to free those worlds, it was our responsibility to do it. And now those freed worlds look to humanity for leadership," Senator Kroll-Goth continued. "Does this not concern you? Are you not simply replacing one empire with another?" Chris Johnson rose from his seat. "Senator, with respect, you're wrong about what we've done. We haven't created an empire. We've created an alliance of free worlds. Each planet governs itself. We just provide mutual defense and trade agreements." Chancellor Vextai held up one of her 4 hands for silence. "There is another matter we must discuss. What do you intend to do with War Prime Kethvar and the other Zephyrian prisoners?" Kate had been expecting this question. It was the most difficult issue she had to deal with. After the Battle of Earth, thousands of Zephyrians had been captured, including their former leader. "War Prime Kethvar is being held on Earth while we decide his fate," Kate said. "We believe he should face trial for war crimes, but we want the galaxy's input on how to proceed." "Many species want him executed for the worlds he destroyed," said another council member. "And we understand that anger," Kate replied. "But humanity believes in justice, not revenge. We think there might be a better way." She looked around the chamber at all the alien faces watching her. Some looked curious, others skeptical. "We've been talking with Kethvar for months now. Dr. Blake has been studying Zephyrian psychology and has made some interesting discoveries." Sarah stood up again. "The Zephyrian hive mind system is breaking down. Without their communication network, individual Zephyrians are starting to think for themselves for the first time in centuries. Kethvar himself is changing." "What do you mean?" Chancellor Vextai asked. "He's learning to feel guilt, remorse, even empathy. Emotions his species had forgotten how to experience. He's asked to speak to representatives of the worlds he conquered. He wants to apologize." The chamber erupted in surprised voices. The idea of a Zephyrian showing remorse was almost unthinkable to species that had lived in fear of them for so long. Kate waited for the noise to die down. "We propose that Kethvar spend the rest of his life helping to rebuild the worlds the Zephyrian Empire destroyed. Not as a punishment, but as a chance for redemption." Senator Kroll-Goth stood up angrily. "You would trust the most dangerous war, criminal in galactic history, to roam free." "Not free," Chris said, "supervised and watched constantly, but given a chance to make amends for what he's done. We think redemption is more powerful than revenge." Chancellor Vextai looked thoughtful. "This is a very human approach to justice. Most species would simply execute such a criminal." "Maybe," That's why most species stayed enslaved to the Zephyrians for so long, Kate said quietly. Sometimes doing the unexpected thing is what changes everything. The chamber went silent. Kate realized she might have gone too far with that comment, but she believed it was true. After a moment, Chancellor Vextai spoke again. There is one more question. What happens if humanity becomes too powerful? What safeguards exist to prevent you from becoming the next galactic empire? Kate had been dreading this question, but she had an answer ready. We propose the creation of the Galactic Defense Alliance, a military organization made up of ships and crews from every member world, commanded jointly by representatives from all species. No single world would have enough power to dominate the others. And humanity would give up its military advantage to join such an alliance? Senator Krolgoth asked skeptically. We would share our technology and work together as equals, Chris said. That's what allies do. Chancellor Vextai looked around the chamber. Are there any other questions for the human representatives? When no one else spoke, she continued. Very well. The Council will now vote on humanity's application for full membership. All those in favor? Kate held her breath as lights began, appearing on the voting board. Green lights meant yes, red lights meant no. For a few seconds, the lights were evenly mixed. Then more green lights appeared, and more. When the voting was finished, the result was clear. 73 votes in favor, 27 against. The motion passes, Chancellor Vextai announced. Humanity is hereby accepted as a full member of the Galactic Council, with all rights and responsibilities that entails. Kate felt tears in her eyes. They had done it. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe. 6 months later, Admiral Chris Johnson stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable as it patrolled the former Zephyrian territories. The ship's crew was mixed now. Humans working alongside aliens from a dozen different worlds, all wearing the uniform of the new Galactic Defense Alliance. Admiral, Lieutenant Commander Steve Adams reported. We're getting a distress call from the Kepler system. Pirates are attacking a merchant convoy. Set course for Kepler, Chris ordered. All ships, prepare for combat operations. The Indomitable and its escort ships jumped to hyperspace. 20 minutes later, they dropped out near Kepler Prime and found 3 pirate vessels attacking a convoy of civilian ships. The pirates were former Zephyrian military, aliens who had refused to accept the fall of their empire and turned to crime instead. They were dangerous, but not nearly as dangerous as the old Imperial fleet had been. This is Admiral Johnson of the Galactic Defense Alliance, Chris broadcast to the pirates. You are attacking civilian vessels in violation of galactic law. Surrender immediately, or we will open fire. The pirate leader's response was predictable. Humans! You destroyed our empire, but you cannot destroy our spirit. We will never surrender to you. Your choice, Chris said. He turned to his weapons. Officer, a young alien from one of the worlds humanity had helped free. Lieutenant Zara, disable their engines. Try not to kill them if possible. Yes, sir. The battle was over in minutes. The GDA ships were faster, better armed, and better trained than the pirates. More importantly, they worked together as a team, while the pirates fought as individuals. When it was over, Chris looked at the captured pirate ships and thought about how much had changed in just 2 years. The galaxy was still healing from centuries of Zephyrian rule, but it was getting better every day. Admiral, Steve said, we're getting a message from Earth. It's from Ambassador Foster. Put her through. Kate Foster's image appeared on the main screen. She was smiling, which was always a good sign. Chris, I wanted to let you know that the first class of the Galactic Military Academy just graduated. 300 officers from 50 different worlds, all trained in human tactical doctrine. Chris smiled back. How did they do? Better than expected. It turns out other species are pretty good at learning to fight dirty when you teach them how. Any word from our special student? Kate's expression became more serious. HFY completed his first year of community service on New Altair. The planetary governor says he's been helpful. He designed a new water purification system for the refugee camps. Chris shook his head in amazement. The former war prime of the Zephyrian Empire was now helping to rebuild the worlds he had once conquered. It still seemed impossible, but it was working. Admiral, Kate continued, there's something else. The Council just approved funding for the Deep Space Exploration Program. We're going to explore beyond the galactic rim, looking for new worlds and maybe new species. Any word on who's going to command the mission? Kate grinned. They want someone with experience in first contact situations. Someone who knows how to make friends with dangerous aliens. Chris laughed. I suppose Jake Morrison would have volunteered if he were still alive. He would have. But I think he'd be proud of what we've accomplished in his name. After the communication ended, Chris walked over to the big window on the bridge and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, beyond the edge of known space, there might be other species like humanity, species that refused to give up, that fought against impossible odds, that believed freedom was worth any sacrifice. Or maybe there were species like the Zephyrians used to be, powerful, arrogant, convinced of their own superiority. Either way, Chris Johnson and the Galactic Defense Alliance would be ready for them. Behind him, the mixed crew of humans and aliens worked together to keep the peace in a galaxy that was still learning what freedom meant. They were the children of species that had been enemies just 2 years ago, now united by the simple idea that everyone deserved the right to choose their own destiny. It wasn't perfect. There were still pirates and criminals, still worlds struggling to rebuild, still species that didn't trust each other. But it was better than what had come before. And every day it got a little bit better. In the detention facility on Earth, War Prime HFY sat in his cell reading reports from the worlds he was helping to rebuild. For the first time in his long life, he felt something his species had forgotten how to feel. Hope. The humans had taught him that. It was never too late to change, never too late to choose a different path. Even someone who had caused as much pain as he had could find a way to make amends. Outside his window, he could see human children playing in a park, laughing and running without fear. A year ago, he would have seen them as future slaves. Now, he saw them as the future guardians of a free galaxy. The most feared species in the galaxy had learned the hard way that humanity doesn't back down. But more importantly, they had learned that sometimes the greatest victory comes not from conquering your enemies, but from helping them become something better. And in a galaxy full of species that had forgotten what it meant to be free, that lesson was the most valuable gift humanity could give.